Well, hey, welcome everyone to another coach video tip. My name's Dan Foster. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and an executive coach here at Building Champions, where we believe that better humans make better leaders. And today I am super excited to be joined by a friend and an executive coach, a CEO mentor, a certified coach, Gavin Kerr. Gavin, it is great to be with you. Thanks for joining me today.
Dan, thank you for inviting me, and thank you all for listening.
Yeah. Well, Gavin, we're going to be talking about a really important topic today, and it's around this developing an executive mindset. And I know from my own journey that as you grow in responsibility with leadership, the demands of how you think and what you prioritize and how you lead really evolve, and it requires change for you. And so I remember the mindset that served me when I was an individual contributor about 25 years ago changed 20 years ago when I started leading people. And then it changed again about 5 years ago when I got to that executive level of leadership here at Building Champions. So today I want to jump into what exactly do we mean by executive mindset? How is it different? And really, more importantly, how does someone develop it? So, Gavin, I'm excited to have you here because of your years of experience, as well as you just being a mentor to leaders, executives, and C suite leaders as well. You have probably seen this transition that has to happen. So, are you ready to jump in? I'll ask
Yep,
you a few questions.
absolutely. And I was on that transition myself, so I
Okay,
remember each of
great.
those inflection points quite well.
Good. Well, let's just start by defining what we mean by executive mindset. Help me understand, or help our listeners understand what is an executive mindset.
So I think an executive mindset is a shift in your fundamental thinking
Hmm.
about leading a business and in a higher level of accountability, a
Okay.
longer term vision and orientation,
Yes.
and a much higher level of accountability as the single point of accountability for either your function or for your organization as a whole.
Yeah, that's great. It does. You're right. It's that you move from maybe a 90-day window or even a 1 year window to thinking 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, right?
Yep, absolutely, even as much as 50 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
So
Good.
if you're thinking, if you're a CEO who is building a plant or a hospital,
Yeah.
those are investments that are decades in terms of their payback, and
Yes.
also huge amounts of money. And so as you move into those leadership roles, the first thing you have to do is shift from your function to the enterprise as a whole, and
Okay.
to thinking broadly about um, what is the what is the vision, the strategy for doing that work. And a great way to learn about that is Daniel Harkavy's Seven Perspectives
Yes.
of Effective Leaders. And it really frames out those critical perspectives of an
Yeah.
executive. What's your current reality for your business? What's your vision? What strategic bets are you making? Do you need to make?
Hmm.
How are you developing the team? What's the customer need? What's the feedback? And where does the customer's business need to go over the next 3, 5, 10 years?
Good.
And how does your role then evolve as the customer needs evolve and your organization needs evolved? And how do you make sure you don't get narrowed in and forget to get an outside perspective? Because it's very easy to get caught in your own thinking.
Yeah. Great.
And
Great. So, oh, sorry. Did I interrupt you? Go ahead.
another part of becoming an executive is we talked a little bit about the time frame
Yeah.
uh, growing,
Yep.
but also the complexity of the work multiplies, and the
Yes.
ambiguity of the problems and the solutions become much, much more difficult.
Yeah.
And so it's critical to be able to think ahead and look around corners, to be able to look at multiple levels of complexity as you work to both solve problems and create opportunities, and to recognize that many decisions won't have clear answers.
That's right.
In fact, if you can get to 80% clarity, you're doing really, really well.
Really, really well. That is so true and such a good reminder. So I know, Gavin, as I was going through this transition of, from individual contributor to team leader to executive, I too read Daniel's book, and I had great coaching and mentoring from people who talked about what you just did, that shifting of the mindset, gathering perspective. One of the things that I struggled with though was the behaviors, like how do I need to change like my rhythms, my routines, my disciplines, and can you talk to us a little bit about that, about how actually your behaviors and what you choose to focus on throughout the day starts to help your executive mindset as well?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dan. And I think it took me a long time to learn
Hmm.
and relearn that.
Hmm.
Um, I think it starts by recognizing that you are not the only person who has the answers
Yeah.
and has great ideas. And so being humble enough to be able to draw other people in who are really smart
Yeah.
and to collaborate well in terms of the work.
Hmm.
The second part of that is shifting your mindset from problem solving to opportunity creating.
Yeah.
And there are incredibly talented people in your organization who know 90% of the problems and 80% of the solutions.
Hmm.
So depending on them and delegating to them and helping them grow by doing that
Yep.
allows you to focus on what are the opportunities that are going to be coming towards us down the road,
It's
and
good.
how do we position the organization, our people, our process, our technology, our information to be able to capture those opportunities as they develop.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. So surround yourself with the right people and the right perspectives that are different than yours, and then have build trust so that so that when you can delegate and empower those people to go tackle some of those problems and challenges that are current reality, and that allows you as an executive to lift your gaze and start to think longer term, more strategically, and really zero in on that executive thinking and doing that is so needed. Am I catching that right in terms of what you're saying?
Absolutely. That's a really clear way to say it.
Yeah, I
And
love
I
that.
think the other part of it, you mentioned earlier, we believe that great humans make great leaders,
Yeah. Hmm.
and great leaders are authentic.
Hmm.
They know who they are, they know what their strengths are, they know what their weaknesses are,
Yeah.
and they lead from that place of strength and values.
Yeah.
And when you are not authentic and consistent with what the organization's vision, values, and what you are saying personally, people
Hmm.
see through that really, really quickly.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
And they read everything that you do.
Hmm.
One of the things I think around authenticity is the shadow of the leader is broad.
Yeah.
So earlier in my career, I worked with a CEO who was brilliant. Um, but he didn't recognize that the things he said, the things he did, how he walked through the hallways had a dramatic influence. And
Yes.
so we were going through a very difficult moment. The finances were looking less good. He walked through the building with his head down,
Oh,
not
yeah.
engaging with people.
Yep.
And it created an immediate set of rumors that, uh-oh, layoffs are coming.
Yes.
He wasn't looking me in the eye.
Right. Right.
And so recognizing that, one of the pressures of being a senior executive is that everything you do is observed. And
Yes.
the same way toddlers learn more from what you do than what you say,
Yeah.
employees learn way more and translate way more from your actions than they do from your words. And they have to be authentic and completely aligned.
Yeah, I think I love that. Thank you. And I think it sort of aligns, but I'm trying to think back to times when I learned a lesson sort of like this. And you actually helped me on one of these. You might not remember this, but I remember it was this last year. I sent an email out to the whole team regarding compensation, and there was a change in some compensation. And you were so gracious. You wrote back and you said something to the effect of, Dan, as an executive, this would have been better communicated in person with each of the people that was affected by this. I know it's more efficient to send an email, Dan, but as an executive, having these compensation type conversations, those have to be done in person. And I immediately like did the hand to the forehead where I was like, yes, I know it's because as an individual contributor and sometimes even as a team leader, it's about efficiency, like getting the words that are being communicated down out to everybody so they can go do stuff. And I forgot to lift my gaze there as an executive and think what you just talked about, which is everything is looked at differently when you're at that executive level. So I wanted to say thank you. I appreciated that kind way you taught me that lesson. And it made me think differently as an executive. So,
Well, and if you think about sports,
yeah.
and as when I went from high school, when I was all state in football, to college, and suddenly everybody around me was all state, and I was competing at that level. If I had been good enough to go to the pros, then the standard of excellence would have gone up another notch.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's a good way to
then
look.
if I happened to be a quarterback of a top team and an all pro, the expectations people have for you are extraordinarily high.
Yes.
You've earned it, but they're extraordinarily high. And so I think one of the things of the journey to becoming an executive is you aspire to the role,
Yeah.
work really hard to get to the role. But then when you get to the role, it's suddenly like, oh man, this is a whole different level than I dreamed it was.
That's
And
right.
you have to live your way into being a great executive and shifting your mindset from the near term,
Yeah.
the problem solving, from being one of the team and talking about them,
Mm-hmm.
becoming part of they.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful transition, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah. Thank you, Gavin. That's great. I love that analogy there. I want to double click on something that you've been talking about, and I want to tie into your experience mentoring CEOs, mentoring senior level executives. What are those great executives like focusing in on and thinking about that really sets them apart? And you kind of started to talk about this, but I want to just go deeper on this because I think it'll help our listeners to understand the true difference here about what do great senior level executives think about.
You know, everybody says, well, they think about culture, culture beats strategy for lunch. And pretty much everybody rolls their eyes.
Right.
But the reality is, your organization is only as talented and capable as the team you build and how aligned they are and how committed they are to the mission.
Yeah.
And so that's all about culture building.
Yep.
It's about ensuring that people are absolutely clear and aligned. It's
Hmm.
about creating systems and processes that
Hmm.
make clear what's important, give people the feedback they need
Yes.
so that they can perform extraordinarily well. And
Yeah.
then it's thinking about the future
Yeah.
and where are we going from here?
Yeah. That's so good, Gav. You're right. Because when the team doesn't know what's important and what the priorities are, they will fill that space with what they think is important. And that may become very siloed in everybody's approach rather than having an overarching priority theme, importance that you're all going after together. So I love that.
When I became the CEO of the Mercy Health System many, many years
Mhm.
ago, we did an exercise with the executive team. There were seven others and myself, and everybody had a post-it note. And I said, put your top 10 priorities on the wall so that we can look at that. And so, of the 70 potential priorities, there were only five that were shared across the team. And that was an incredible learning. But
Yeah.
when you look at why we were struggling, there wasn't alignment, there wasn't clarity and focus. And once we did that, people did incredibly good work and we got the turnaround done. But it's really easy if you don't give clarity, if you don't build alignment, to get people going a million different directions.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. So, Gavin, let's finish up here by talking to the listener that is recently promoted. They're an executive and they're wanting to develop that executive mindset. What are some habits, best practices? You shared the 7 Ps framework, but are there others that you would recommend to, if you were mentoring or coaching this individual, what would you say for them if they're coming to you saying, Gavin, I want to develop an executive mindset?
Um, I think there's a couple of things that I think are important. One is um, do a life plan,
Mm,
figure out who you are and what's important to you,
yeah.
and why you're doing what you're doing.
Okay.
That will help create clarity and authenticity. The second is um, really think about your team. What are the capabilities? What are the deficits? What resources and mindsets do you need on your team to maximize the effectiveness of that team going forward?
Mm,
Um, the third is watch people around you, read biographies, see how other leaders lead and how other leaders have led in the past.
yeah.
One of the most influential books for me early in my life or career was the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin,
Okay.
which seems, it's a really old book, but it's incredibly current. And it was
Interesting.
really helpful in letting me begin to think about what does it mean to be an effective leader,
Okay.
and then really work on um, building that broader perspective and think what are the time frames that your job requires you to think? Is it 3 years, 5 years, 10 years?
Yep.
What's the complexity and what are the sources of complexity? And how do you learn to make decisions with ambiguity?
Yeah.
Uh, there's a really good good work that's been done around decision traps.
Hmm.
And Daniel Kahneman and others who put together that research. It's
Yeah.
really helpful as you think about how you're making decisions, how your team's making decisions, and how do you deal with ambiguity in making decisions that are a longer time frame than you're used to.
Yes.
And then the final thing is um, it's really important to accept that you are the single point of accountability
Yeah.
and that you can't blame anybody else. You
Hmm.
can turn to others, so you can get help from a coach, a mentor, a supervisor who's a boss who's helpful.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you are the person who's accountable, and that's a new level of responsibility that is both priceless and terrifying.
Yes, it is. That's great, Gavin. So, but thank you so much. This has been great. If you're listening today and watching, and you're sitting here going, "Man, I do want someone to help me on this journey," check us out at buildingchampions.com. Follow us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Instagram. We're there. We want to journey with you and want to help with you. And maybe that just starts with a discovery call to learn about where you're at and how we can pour into you. So, Gavin, thank you so much for your expertise and your wisdom on this topic. It's so important right now for leaders that are newly promoted into that executive level, but it's also a great reminder, like for me, that I've been here for 5 years and I'm still trying to develop that executive mindset. It's not, I don't think you just arrive. It truly is like a process and a journey that you're always on, right?
Yep. You're
So,
constantly growing, constantly learning, and that's
yeah.
part of the fun of it.
That is, that is. Well, Gavin, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for watching and listening. Check us out at buildingchampions.com if we can help in any way. So we'll talk to you soon. Take care.